Okay, so here we go. We're going to solve this equation. We have negative 13 equals 7 times the quantity. That's what those parentheses mean. 7 times the quantity, v minus 4, and then subtract 2v. Okay, so now we're recognizing there's more to it. We do have a v term inside the parentheses and a v term outside the parentheses. Usually we try to combine v terms, but since it's inside the parentheses, there's one step that I have to do first before I can combine that. And that has to do with getting rid of the parentheses. So how do we get rid of these parentheses? We actually use what's known as the distributive property, meaning we're going to take this 7 and we're going to multiply that 7 times the v and the 7 times the 4. Okay, lots of students get confused about multiplying times a variable. All it does is make it have a coefficient, meaning a number in front of the variable. So here I'm going to rewrite this as negative 13 equals now 7 times v, which is giving me 7v. Okay, so that just means v 7 times. And then 4 7 times, or 7 times 4, is 28 minus 2v. So there. Now I'm ready to go ahead and combine my variable terms. So my variable terms are 7v and minus 2v. So once again, I include the sign that is in front of the term. So here, if I combine this is a positive 7v, that's a minus 2v, that's going to give me a positive 5v, and bring down the rest of the equation. So minus 28 and minus 13 over here on this side, and we are left with a two-step equation. And two-step equations, we have the two sides. We're going to go ahead and isolate for my variable, and the first thing I'm going to cancel is this minus 28, and I minus by to cancel it is to add 28. So I'm going to add 28. Minus 28 plus 28 cancels out. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So I go ahead and I'm going to bring down my 5v. And here, once again, students get confused here. It's like, do I add them or subtract them? Well, if this were a positive 13, we would say 13 plus 28 and we would add it. But since this is a negative 13, we do the opposite. Okay, that's kind of how I remember. So that means I'm going to actually subtract these numbers. And again, you can go over to the side and rewrite it in a way that makes a little more sense to you. We have our subtraction here. So 8 minus 3 is 5, and then 2 minus 1 is 1. And my answer is going to be a positive. How do I know? Because 28 is bigger than 13, so I'm going to get a positive 15 over here. And now I'm back to solving this equation. I have 5 being multiplied times v. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 5 to get my v by itself. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. So I'm going to divide the 15 by 5 and get 3. So there it is. All right, so here we go. I'm going to solve this equation for my example number 2. I have 2x plus 6 times the quantity x plus 7 equals negative 22. So once again, usually I want to combine my x terms, but I have an x term that is inside a parenthesis. So I need to get rid of that parenthesis by first using the distributive property. So I'm going to distribute. I'm going to multiply that 6 to the x and the 6 to the 7. So the 2x stays 2x plus 6 times x just gives me 6x. And then 6 times 7 will give me a 42. So I get plus 42 equals negative 22 over here. So now I can go ahead to my step of combining my x terms. So that means I'm going to combine this 2x with this plus 6x. So if I combine that together, I get 8x plus 42 equals negative 22. And then I can go ahead and start solving this two-step equation. right? Meaning I want to get my variable by itself. So I am going to cancel that plus 42 by subtracting 42 right there. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And once again, do I subtract these or add these? Well, if this were a positive 22, I would subtract. But since it's a negative 22, that means I'm going to actually add these together. And I'm going to end up with a negative 64. Okay, and 8x. And what's next? I'm going to divide by 8. So I get my x by itself. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm dividing negative 64 by 8 gives me a negative 8. So x equals negative 8. So there you go, your second example.